without saying that the internet loves to come up with crazy dark theories about the beloved classics of our childhood. Maybe we're just gluttons for punishment, or maybe there really is more to these so-called wholesome series than we realized. Welcome back, most amazing crew. I am your host Kennedy, and today we're taking a trip down memory lane for the second time, because I'm back to ruin your childhoods with part 2 of the top 10 terrifying Toy Story theories you need to pray aren't real. You ready? Starting us off at number 10 is Sid was from an abusive house. So this may be less of a theory and more of a growing up and realizing that the circumstances Sid was living in were not great. Essentially, the theory is that Sid wasn't a bad kid at all, just a victim of a bad household, and so he let out his frustrations by creating strange mutant toys. There are two sort of pieces to back up this theory. Number one is that he managed to order a rocket to his house in the 90s, which was wild because A, online ordering was not the same as it was today and was certainly not as easy for a child to access, which leads to the second part that one of his parents would have likely had to order it for him, and I guess they just didn't seem to mind or care that their elementary school aged kid wanted a life-threatening rocket. Number two is that Sid's father is seen passed out in front of a television with empty cola cans thrown across the floor, which clearly evokes a much darker image of an alcoholic. Just replace the cola with beer and there you have it. So maybe all this time Sid's poor behavior stemmed from wanting a bit of attention from the adults in his life, which is just so sad if that's true. Next up at number 9 is that it's apparently an analogy for the director's time with Disney. Apparently, before creating the beloved franchise of Toy Story, director John Lasseter was fired from Disney. The reason behind the fire was allegedly due to the fact that Lasseter was pushing for a computer animated method at the time, and Disney was still pretty firm on sticking to hand-drawn films. But still, Lasseter insisted and began working on a computer animated version of The Brave Little Toaster, and this led to him being fired from the company. According to this theory, Toy Story became an analogy for reconciling those differences, as Woody represents the sort of traditional, old age, and already loved method of animation, whereas Buzz represents a newer, more technologically advanced method that Lasseter was pushing for. Of course, at the end of the film, the two become friends and find they have more in common than they originally thought, mirroring the real-life amalgamation of Pixar and Disney in the Toy Story franchise. I mean, it's definitely not the darkest theory on our list, but still I don't really want the whole story behind the movie to be about a feuding company. Coming up at number 8 is Woody could have easily been Lotso. The main villain of Toy Story 3 was the not-so-cuddly pink bear named Lotso, who essentially made the lives of all the toys at Sunnyside Daycare a living hell. What humanized Lotso though was his villain origin story. We find out during the film that the bear was accidentally abandoned by his owner, and when he finally finds her, he's heartbroken to find she has a new favorite toy. This pain leads to a sinister life spent torturing others. But many on Reddit have pointed out that if Woody didn't have Andy, he could have very well turned out just like the pink dictator bear. If you remember, he was incredibly jealous when Buzz came into the picture and frequently tried to turn the group against him. Many have theorized that the only reason he ended up befriending Buzz and coming around to the two sharing Andy's affection was because he didn't lose Andy the way Lotso lost his owner. Meaning, if things had gone a little differently, Woody could have very well been the villain in the story. Next up at number 7, Sid became a garbage man? We know that Sid knows that the toys are alive because of course he witnessed their sentience firsthand in the attack against him in the first movie. Now, if we're also assuming that the theory that Sid comes from an abusive household exists in this same universe, it would make sense that he would grow up trying to save toys from being killed in the incinerator because he is maybe the only adult that is actually aware of their aliveness. Also, there's a high chance Sid would have a bit of a savior complex and would be looking to rescue people from bad situations since he never had anyone to do that for him when he needed it. Essentially, the theory is that Sid is the garbage man in Toy Story 3, and they back this up using the evidence that he knows the toys are alive and he became a garbage man to save them from going to the local dump. I mean, could it be a bit of a stretch? Sure. But is it the most crazy theory out there? Definitely not. Coming in at number 6, is they are immortal. So I wouldn't recommend thinking about this one too long and hard because it might just cause some existential dread. But one of the most chilling theories is that the toys aren't organic beings, they are actually immortal and can never die. And okay, I know what you're thinking, they're literally toys, that makes sense, of course they can't die. But might I remind you that in every other sense of the entire series, they're literally alive. So it's weird that they could never die. The theory starts off by explaining that they don't decompose the way other living beings do, and unless they're physically destroyed, they could live on for generation after generation. For example, Woody, Jessie, and Bullseye have been around since the 50s, but they haven't aged a day. And even darker is that they will watch their owners get old, get bored of them, and then give them away with full cognizance of their situation and knowing that this will be their entire existence. Meaning that when we see Rex in the crossover with the WALL-E movie, he would be completely aware that the world had gone to hell and he was just left on Earth by himself and he'll never escape. Coming in at number 5, Forkey was Woody's imaginary friend. In Toy Story 4, the introduction of the character Forkey brought us some hilarious moments, but he was also the reason that Woody began pulling away from his band of loyal friends. According to the Reddit user Silolam, they believe that Forkey wasn't even real to begin with, making the plot even darker. Quote, "If Forkey was made out of trash and became alive, in that case, every drawing that Bonnie or Andy have ever made would be alive too, and that's not the case." They then go on to elaborate that Woody is the first to touch the stuff that ends up turning into Forkey, therefore Woody would have to have visualized how he would look. Essentially, they believe Woody created the idea of Forkey and that he never actually ever existed. So this makes me wonder, if this theory were true, did the other toys not see Forkey and wonder what the heck was up with Woody and why he was talking into thin air? I have questions. Next up at number 4, Andy's Mom Remarried. So, if you remember from the first part a while back, there is a pretty unanimous fan theory that Andy's dad is dead. That in and of itself is obviously incredibly horrible, but it could actually be even sadder. Reddit user Eat Books tacked onto the popular belief, going on to say that they believe not only is Andy's dad dead, but the entire first film is a metaphor for Andy's mom remarrying a new man, and the actual story is being filtered through Andy's play the whole time. They continue on to explain that, quote, "Woody represents his biological father, someone sturdy but visualized as a Roman cowboy. Buzz represents Andy's stepfather, a shiny, cool new dad, one that makes Woody seem dangerously out of date." This would of course explain Woody's jealousy and denial of Buzz becoming a part of the family at first, but eventually coming around to the idea that this is just how life is gonna go from now on. I kinda hate how much this one makes sense, only because I don't want Andy's dad to be dead, but of all the theories out there, sadly, this one's actually kinda logical. Next up at number 3, Woody belonged to Andy's dad. Continuing on with the theories based off the first theory that Andy's dad is dead, is one where many believe Woody actually used to belong to Andy's dad, and that his spirit lives inside the toy. This theory would give a bit of backstory as to why Woody was Andy's favorite toy to begin with, why Woody is so incredibly protective of Andy, and it would also connect the dots once again with Woody's initial disdain towards Buzz, as Woody, or Andy's dad, felt like he was being replaced. One Reddit user, Lan078, wrote, quote, "Woody was the favorite toy of Andy's dad. The handwriting on the boot of Woody isn't of Andy, it's the handwriting of Andy's dad when he was a kid. It's already established that Woody was a secondhand toy by the time Andy owned him, so maybe it was a gift from his dad. It would also explain why a college student was having such a difficult time getting rid of a toy later on, cause if it was a gift from his dead dad, that adds a whole other layer." Next up at number 2, Andy's parents are getting divorced. In a bit of a flipperoo, this is kind of a same but different theory surrounding the life status of Andy's dad. In this theory, Andy's dad is alive, But he and Andy's mom are getting a divorce, which is why he's never around. This theory could also exist in the same universe as the stepdad theory too, so that does kind of add a bit of an interesting layer. Believers of this theory back it up by explaining that in the house there are family photos, but only of Andy, Molly, and their mom. Plus, the mom never wears a wedding ring, and the family is moving into a smaller house in Toy Story, something that is pretty common during a divorce. They then go on to point out that if Andy's dad really were dead, there would be pictures of him in the house, and that the mom would probably still wear a ring as she'd still be in love with him and want reminders of him. But if they were no longer together, it makes a lot of sense that there's practically no mention of him at all. But honestly, who the heck knows? And last up in our number 1 spot today is that they were never alive. Of course, not every fan theory can coexist at once. While some believe that the toys are immortal, sentient beings with a complete understanding of the world around them, another Reddit theory proposed by KingZilla2000 suggests Toy Story is more like the Lego movie, wherein the toys' actions and story are actually entirely made up by the child playing with them. Therefore, the entire plot is just a figment of Andy's imagination and a game of make-believe. Listen, of all the things that could be true, I don't know why, but this one just makes me straight up sad. Like, there's something so dark about the fact that none of it was real. I mean, I know none of it was real, but you know what I mean. That being said, this theory would quickly fix some of the plot holes in the film, like why Buzz freezes around humans like all of the other toys, despite the fact that it's made abundantly clear he doesn't know he's a toy, but still, I'm definitely hoping this one is far from true. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time.